Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Bremen Regional Championships 2022. I'm Connor Hayward, and joining me for day 2 is Amy Mosley. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you.
Yeah, we had a good night. We had a bit of rest, went over some decks,
Absolutely.
went over some of the plays that we saw yesterday because it was a long day of some really high-level competition.
Absolutely smashing competition yesterday. It was so many fantastic players, great deck ideas, new things we haven't seen before.
Well, and this is what we've seen this format, is that like everyone kind of, at the beginning of the format was talking, it's RCS, it's going to be RCS Inteleon and Mew, and basically then a thing of like keep iterating from there. But that's what we've really seen. Lists have become more refined. We're targeting certain matchups more so than others, which has led to an interesting looking day 2 format.
Yeah, it does look really interesting. There's an interesting split of decks and a lot of players that kind of I haven't seen too much before, and I'm really excited to see who comes out on top here, because it could be somebody quite new to us.
I mean, we do have a few established names and a few names that are particularly well known in the list as well, but these are from stream, from yesterday too. But I want to take a moment to kind of go over the pie chart, as it were. You can't actually show it to you right now, so just picture one in your heads, please. Imagine a pie chart, if you will. And on this, there's a ton of RCS. There's no single largest RCS chunk other than just straight RCS Inteleon. Some are playing the Jolteon package, some are not. But then there's an awful lot of variations with RCS. So we have like the Malamars, the Beedrill lines, the Barrels, the Sylveons. So there's an awful lot of different variants of it. And we saw that yesterday. There's no two people who've really agreed on the same way of playing this deck.
No, and pretty much every single Arceus deck also has a lot of variation even within the tools, items and supporters they're using. So I don't think we saw any sort of copy decks. There was no linear way of playing this. Everyone has their own build, and it's really lovely to see the imaginative kind of prowess that's gone into deck building here, because you can really see it through the variations of decks.
Yeah.
And it means that you don't particularly get a dry matchup, even with two Arceus decks next to each other.
They're both navigating it very differently, right?
Exactly, and they both have a slightly different game plan. So even though, yes, there's lots of Arceus around, yes, some of them sort of work in the same way, there's so many different takes on that you don't end up with this very methodical match that you can kind of see what's going to happen, because it really isn't like that at all, which is fantastic to see in a finals. So it's lovely that we're going to have some interesting matches today for certain.
Yeah, and on top of that, we also have a lot of Mew, which is the other side of that coin. The Mew mirror is a mess. And there were 20% Mew converting into day 2. That's a lot of Mew. And I think it was one of those ones that I don't want to say people slept on. That feels like the wrong word. Everyone knows Mew is a good deck, but I don't think people was expecting it to convert or be as consistent as it appeared yesterday. People who were kind of moving more towards targeting the Inteleon engines for the RCS decks, moving towards going, okay, this is clearly the most popular deck, so we can target that down, which left Mew kind of just going, hi guys, don't forget about me.
Yeah.
I'm just going to one-hit knock out everything you have.
Steamroll through this, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's one of the beautiful things about Mew. We saw a lot of Mew yesterday. Some did good, some did bad. Obviously, there is a certain amount of luck within everything. You're playing a TCG. There's always a certain amount of luck involved. But Mew is also a deck with a high skill level floor. And there is certainly something to be said for a high level Mew player. And we are certainly going to see a lot of them today.
Yeah, we won't see any in this round, however, as we once again pick Stéphane to feature on stream with his RCS Inteleon list up against Ondrej Škubal. The Czech player is bringing a bird box, but a bird box with a twist. He's playing the Galarian Wheezing. That's basically the way to prevent Jolteon getting in your way. As we'll see, prize cards coming down now for Stéphane. Looks like I can see a Drizzar and a Sobble in there, so not ideal. The Manaphy's in there as well. I don't think Ondrej's playing anything that really snipes the bench. He's not one of the people playing the Urshifu's. Oh, he is playing Rowlet, so I guess the Manaphy sort of
sort of snipe.
And as we see the lovely, awkward, I don't know if we're fist bumping or handshaking, we get underway with day 2.
And not great to see an Assault Gate Hooper in the active, really. You've got to bounce that back to the bench and back into the active for a knockout. But they do run plenty of scoop up nets, so it is possible.
Yeah, Stéphane gets us underway. And as we see, the RCSV looks like a pretty solid start. Gets the ability to search the deck with this quick ball for a quick prize check, establish what is missing, but also get down your sobbles so you start accessing the Shady Dealing Drizzle from turn 2, and potentially also having, I think I saw an out to energy in hand, so Stéphane can even get the turn 1 attach down, which is basically all RCS ever really needs to set up.
It's interesting to see a Sobble and a Drizzle in both players' prizing, because
Yes.
they're both even more so going to be scraping for that first KO to almost get the slight advantage with what their deck is trying to do, which is going to be interesting to see if either of them manage, or who manages to get into that extra Sobble and Drizzle in this game if it's needed.
Yeah, so turn continues with a second quick ball, getting a second Sobble. Basically get the board set up nice and early. I would be surprised if Stéphane didn't already have a feeling of what Ondrej was playing. By this point, especially at the end of day 1, you've either seen people, because like you finish a round early, or you know someone who's played against them. And also, like, you have the entire evening chatting with friends afterwards, go, cool, so did you see anything spicy yesterday in anyone's lists? And then they're like, oh yeah, this guy was playing a Galarian Weezing. You're like, I see.
It's really interesting with the Galarian Weezing, because it is obviously going to stop Starbirth.
It is indeed, and the fact of the Starbirth, and because you have the Ascension coughing, even in this situation, going second, in theory, if you can retreat the Assault Gate Hooper out of the way, attach to the coughing, and go, right, cool. But he's gone.
Yeah.
Ascension, get this down, turn where you're slow. However, with the RCSV already having an attachment on it, you're thinking, well, maybe they can just KO me, and that would kind of suck.
It would, yeah, 1 double turbo energy, and that is game over for Weezing, but it would still prevent them from using Starbirth for an extra turn.
Yes.
And Stéphane's got quite a low hand count at the moment, so 2 cards in hand. I didn't spot what was in there, so I'm not sure if there's any out, if they do sort of get plonked with a Weezing here.
Yeah, so we'll see the level ball grabbing Sobble. I think I see another Sobble in hand as well, so we can get a bench. And I think there's no out for a nice supporter play this turn, which is unfortunate. If there had been an out, say, for a Bird Keeper, there would be potential for a Rowlet to snipe off one of the Sobbles, which would be, just start taking the single prizes, make the engine a little bit more inconsistent. It's basically why Rowlet's seeing so much play right now.
Although the keep calling Sobble is really strong, because you can go and get more Sobbles. The difficulty with that is it is 60 HP, and we've seen a lot of that Rowlet this weekend. Yep. And 60 HP can be a bit scary, so some people may consider running the 70 HP Sobble, although it doesn't have a usable attack. So it depends what deck you're running, but it might be a consideration in the future if these sorts of decks continue in popularity and continue to build. And it's even more important to get those 2 Sobble down for exactly that reason. So if one goes down, you've still got your backup Sobble.
Exactly. So Ondrej basically getting himself set up. No energy attachment or supporter, though, so that's quite telling. Stéphane kind of knows that maybe he could take advantage of this turn. And looks like that's going to be the plan. Goes straight in with the RCS V-Star from the Evolutions Incense, a card that is kind of like one of the most useful consistency cards in these formats where everything is kind of an evolving Pokemon. Can get you your Drizzles for consistency, or your attackers in most cases. I think I see a research in hand as well for Stéphane, so
that low hand count isn't so scary when you can research for exactly 7 cards. Beautiful play. It's always nice when you've got an empty hand for a professor's research.
Yeah, so in that hand, I don't think I saw a Drizzle, but I did see an Ultra Ball at the very least. We still have access to Starbirth this turn as well to guarantee our KO should we want it, which of course we do, as we'll see Stéphane go in and grab 2 cards from the deck. One of these almost certainly the Turbo Energy. The other card, it depends on what his plan will be for the remainder of the game. Like, what does he prioritize right now? Since there are so many Sobble out, KOing the Hooper makes logical sense. But maybe grab the boss, or start thinning cards out, but
Looks like they're considering possibly going for a Drizzile, and then they would be able to start that engine off.
yeah, I think Stéphane's just going, right, okay, what do I already have outs for in my hand? And this is important stuff, right? It's go, okay, to be able to make the play I want to make, I'm going to need the following things. And what do I already have access to? How many cards do I have to discard to be able to make that play? Make sure that you're not missing anything kind of obvious.
Yeah, and using that Starbirth nice and early possibly is a bit telling that they know that Ondrej is playing that Wheezing.
Yeah.
Get that out of the way early. It's really the most important ability in this deck for now, especially in the early stages, that Wheezing really does shut down.
Yep. So
Boss off the Drizzile potentially.
yeah, I guess is it a Scoop Up Net in hand? I think it might be a Scoop Up Net in hand. If it's a Scoop Up Net, then grabbing the Drizzile is like a nice play because it makes your Scoop Up Net a second Drizzile net when you need it, and you can. I think already has the Shady Dealings and Teleon in hand, so can really get a lot of value over the next couple of turns. And I think you can see the hand motion. Players have a lot of players that you see on stream a lot have a very telling hand motion when they're about to attack. Stéphane is one of them, and takes the KO on the Hooper, accelerating 3 energy extra onto the benched RCSV. 2 attackers ready to roll for Stéphane as he takes the first prize card of this series.
It's interesting to see when you're in the first game of day 2, really, how cautious players are going into their first round, because the plays being made here are so crucial at this point, and it's just interesting to see them make sure they're overcommitting as many Sobble as they can to ensure their deck is going to be able to do something. Now, Ondrej's deck admittedly is going to be slower anyway. It very much runs as a single prize deck normally does. They are almost wanting Stéphane to take knockouts on purpose, so their deck gets stronger. Their deck definitely benefits from the long game.
Yeah.
They are hanging in there as long as they can before their Pokemon start to become stronger because of either the state of the board or the state of the prize cards.
Yep. The Galarian Moltres, one of the most powerful late game attackers we have, gets more powerful for every prize card your opponent has taken. So you can kind of afford the slow starts in these decks if it means that you can just go huge one-hit knockout into second huge one-hit knockout to finish the game. The Evo Instance grabbing Drizzile, and Ondrej maybe considering finding an out for that Snorlax perhaps. Go and get the Gourmandize, refresh this hand if the hand feels a little bit stuck. But this Drizzile searching, double checking prizes, I think, making sure what options are available, especially in these kinds of lists where you have such a range of options available, making sure you're like, okay, I haven't prized this out right now, right? I have access to it if I need to, so grabbing Levelball.
Absolutely, and they've got the Galarian Zapdos in there as well, so that's hitting weakness on the Arceus, but is Stéphane going to play enough Vs on the bench that it's going to do enough damage? So the state of play in this game is going to be really important for Ondrej as well.
Yeah, so see, basically the Drizzile chain, as it were, where you use the first Drizzile to search out for a second Drizzile, can help thin the deck. This is not always the correct line. I think a lot of people default to this just to thin the deck out as much as possible, but there's a time and a place. This looks like a good one because since you know you're likely sticking, maybe this Sobble is around for another turn, you can get to the point where you can fairly easily, have access to more Drizziles in the next couple of turns too.
Does it? They look like they're going for the Snorlax or the Sonya, but oh, they are possibly not too happy about that one. We saw a little head shake there, so I'm not sure they know really what they want to go in for with the next one.
Yeah, I don't think they have an energy out. Oh no, they do have energy in hands.
They've got, yeah, one for a manual retreat, but possibly not for anything more than that. So they can drop down, they can drop that Sobble down into the Snorlax, but I don't think they're too happy, possibly about the fourth Sobble and the prizes.
No, that might well be the thing that was the head shake. Holding that Galarian Zapdos, you don't want to really play it down. It basically, Stéphane has the boss. You've seen him take it, so having that is not ideal because it kind of just says, okay, go ahead and boss it, I guess. You can take 2 prize cards. And here, this deck is really good at going, I'm going to make you play the long game. Take singles one at a time. As we see the Dunsparce now come down, basically turning off the real threat of that Zapdos.
Yeah, the weakness now isn't too much of a concern, and that's nice for Stéphane because they can do a bit more on their turns with their game as well. They're not so fearful of filling their bench. Not that they need to. They're in a really good position here. They've got 2 big attackers set up and ready to go. They've just got to whittle away at the single prizes, which is really difficult because it does make it so scary when you consider those Moltres and potentially Zapdos if Dunsparce gets KO'd. So there's a lot to take into consideration here. But it's easy to think that Ondrej's on the back foot, but this is exactly what his deck is out to do.
Yeah, and we'll see the knockout on the Snorlax. Only getting 1 use of the Gormandize ability for Ondrej. And Stéphane going, cool, I'm going to leave those energies right where they are. Just going to shuffle this deck back up, save these resources for later on. So down to 4 prize cards for Stéphane. But there aren't even 4 prize cards out for him to take. There are only 3 available, so it's going to have this game push into the late game, see if Ondrej can mount the comeback when his deck is set up ready to do so.
Yeah, absolutely. And we saw it yesterday a lot, actually. There were a lot of games that really did scrape at the end, and it was so close. But for so long, it looked as if one side really had the advantage. But that's the beauty of all these cards that can pop out of the deck or discard pile out of nowhere and take a big KO. I suppose the difficulty here is that Ondrej will be taking 2 prizes maximum, whereas yesterday we saw a few people take advantage of the fact that Mew VMAX would give you 3 prize cards, so you only need to take 2 knockouts for the win. So this is where the prize trade could get a little bit difficult.
Yeah, Ondrej has I think 2 different ways of shady dealings this turn. We have the Inteleon for the double shady dealings, taking 2 cards from the deck.
Ooh, and possibly capitalizing on a few more shady dealings if they take that scoop up net.
Yeah, I kind of like this because you can go, you basically net 1, as it were. Like you gain 1 card here, you gain the quick ball, you then reuse it on the next one. You make that into a net 3. So you can kind of accelerate the speed at which you gain the resources. As we see Rowlet grabbed, maybe to snipe the little Dunsparce off the bench.
Yeah, because Manaphy's in the prizes, so that's not an option at the moment.
And if this is the case, sniping the Dunsparce off the bench does make the RCS in the active a little bit more at risk of Zapdos, but Stéphane's playing this very well, keeping the narrow board, avoiding from benching too many RCSV.
Oh, here he comes. He could go for the Sobble. He could try and stop Stéphane from having further search options. But for the interest of the late game, that Dunsparce is a problem.
Yeah, and now having to weigh up. Is this the turn we scoop up net, or could we hold off for another turn? Do we need it right now? I suspect Ondrej will be aware that Stéphane is only playing the 1 Marnie for hand disruption. So he's probably thinking, oh, I could maybe get away with holding on to some of these resources. Like, make it a 2-turn play to set up what I really want to do.
Yeah, Marnie's such a strong card in this format, and it has been since it came out. Even just to disrupt your opponent's hand, it doesn't necessarily benefit every deck. But stopping your opponent from doing exactly what they've been searching for this whole time is such a strong tactic. So they still know that Stéphane has a boss in hand, for example. So Ondrej might want to Marnie in the next few turns. You just don't know. It's one of those interesting things. Stéphane is still only taking single prizes, though. So are they that bothered?
Yeah,
Possibly not right now.
No, I'm thinking about Stéphane potentially wanting to Marnie Ondrej out of the large hand he's accumulating. Because if you can do that on a turn where you the clock starts for these single prize decks basically on the next knockout. because they have to go 2-2-2. They have 3 attacking turns, but they have to be able to take the big one-hit knockout. So if that's going to happen, they have to be able to race for the last 3.
Absolutely, yeah.
So if Stéphane is able to take a simple KO plus Marnie, as we do see the Dunsparce get KO'd, then we start getting into situations like, okay, maybe Stéphane is able to kind of go, right, you don't have enough resources right now to be able to come back into this. But I do see the Ordinary Rod in hand for Stéphane, so could even have access to go and recycle the Dunsparce.
Yeah, he's coming back straight away, not taking any chances.
And even has the quick ball just to go grab it directly from the deck to go, right, okay, excuse me, I would like to keep my weaknesses turned off. As we see the quick ball. Oh, look, there he is.
He didn't stay in the deck for long. Yeah, trying to cut off Ondrej's ability to have plenty of attackers will be important here, because they don't have a lot of mid to early game attackers. Zapdos is probably one of their most viable early game attackers. Turning that off as a potential one-hit KO, it could be disastrous. So hopefully Ondrej's cooking up a plan to get rid of that Dunsparce once again. Yeah,
so I'm assuming at this point Stéphane also knows about the counts of Birdkeeper and Rowlets in Ondrej's list, perhaps, so would be aware that he could do something along the lines of, you know, if KO's this Rowlet, that's out of Rowlets for Ondrej. And yeah, we're going to see Big Charm plus the Marnie. I love this turn. This is the turn where the clock really is on for Ondrej. Moltres isn't doing enough damage. It's only doing 170 right now. And if the fact that you can Marnie plus Big Charm to protect something, make it more difficult for Ondrej to have even get into a meaningful attacker, then you're pretty happy.
I did see in Ondrej's hand earlier, there's a rescue rescue carrier. So Rowlet could potentially pop back quite quickly, because that goes to hand.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really interesting combo. I quite like that one. Oh, wow. He's bumping up his Dunsparce with a Big Charm. Crikey.
He's going, right, Rowlet.
Stop it.
You aren't dealing with this.
Put Rowlet right in its place. Giving that Dunsparce a charm probably bigger than it.
Yeah. Imagining Pokemon wearing the tool cards is always one of my favorite things. I always think, like, Cape of Toughness. It must look so weird on so many Pokemon.
Right. How do you put that on a Galarian Moltres?
Yeah, there's no space. There's no neck.
No, there's no neck. And it would burn it, right?
Yeah.
How's that working? One of my favorites of all time was Jirachi on a skateboard.
Yeah, it was just an adorable thing to see.
It's very adorable.
As we see the attach for Capture Energy for Stéphane. Having now been pretty sure he's put meaningful things to the bottom of the deck for Ondrej, can grab the next Sobble.
Still, neither player has taken the Sobble from their prize cards or Dressile. So
no.
It's interesting to have one cut off from the deck for both players. And technically, Stéphane was one less search for the Dressile and Sobble as well, with the lack of a level ball there. Yeah,
so we'll see the KO on the Rowlet. Stéphane showing that the Manaphy that's prized is not the only way to avoid Rowlet taking KOs on Dunsparces. And yep, that will be end of game 1. Ondrej scoops it up. Kind of at that point was too far behind to mount a meaningful comeback.
Yeah, unfortunately, they were just a little bit too far behind. And Stéphane had loads of attackers ready to go. Every counter under the sun. And that Big Charm on the Dunsparce seemed to really solidify that.
Yeah, and it was just a case of saying, look, I know your plan is to kind of like pick off little things on the bench where you can, maybe soften something up in the active spot to take a big KO later. I'm just going to make it really difficult for you to do that, but also just going poke one KO at a time.
Slow and steady wins the race.
And just, yeah, exactly. Just kind of go, right, you're on a 6-turn timer. I will take a KO every turn for 6 turns. So you have to be able to race at some point, otherwise you're just going to take this win.
Yeah, and where Ondrej was going to have to take sort of possibly two prizes, it leaves them needing to take out 2 single prizes as well to win. So picking off 2 throughout the early to mid game is ideal, and not being able to do that because of the lack of the rescue carrier, and then possibly, you know, the Dunsparce with the big chum. Tool Scrapper seems so important right now to a lot of decks for this exact reason, is that there's so many great item cards that can attach to really stop your opponent in what they're doing.
The Scrapper right now is a great include if you have space, because it actually does a lot of math fixing for you, removing things like the charms, removing belts. It can also help you in certain other matchups, like against Whimsicott, against Jolteon. So it's worth an include for a lot of these players.
Absolutely.
As we see Melanie, 2 water, a boss, capture. So a lot of energy in prizes for Stéphane. But also, we see the lone Rowlet in the prizes for Ondrej. Will be interesting to see if he can get the Wheezing set up this game, though. As we see an instant play of the Assault Gate Hooper to the bench. One of your better early game attackers. Not huge damage output, but it is pretty consistent.
And pretty worth playing the Manaphy to active, because although it's not needed in this matchup, having the Assault Gate Hooper on the bench on the first turn is great.
Yeah.
So it's probably worth playing the Manaphy. Ondrej plays enough scoop up nets that that Manaphy can probably pop back to their hand at some point if it doesn't get KO'd by an Arceus in the meantime.
And they're just going to see Stéphane play it slow here. I think I actually had the quick ball, so opted not to discard anything and go and get the Sobble. Perhaps it wasn't because they didn't have a deck search. They weren't, and they valued everything in their hand. Perhaps using the free ability to search here, using the attack to kind of say, okay, now I know next turn what I can afford to discard, what I need to be searching.
Yeah, sometimes using a quick ball with zero knowledge of the deck can be quite risky. You don't know what are in those prizes. They could be abysmal. There could be absolutely your main linear way to play. You discard one too many V or V-Star and it's all over before you even know. So it's genuinely a really smart play because he already has the 2 Arceus out.
Yeah.
With so much energy on now.
Ondrej also didn't get his own Sobble down turn 1, so is sort of in a spot of going, okay, well, if I play one lone Sobble now, and Stéphane's able to go boss KO, feels bad. I don't have an engine. We can at least see maybe Hooper come into the active spot, take a sneaky hit with the Assault Gate, start softening up this Arceus. But only if Ondrej wants to commit the energy to retreat the active Manaphy. Interesting to see that Stéphane also has potential outs to go grab the Manaphy this game. As we see, it's not in the prize card, so that's the other way of shutting down these Hooper snipes to the bench. The Rowlet snipes to the bench. Not that it needs shutting down because it's sat there in Ondrej's prize cards. And we're just going to see a pass.
Saving resources for later.
Yeah, but the issue is that Stéphane can have the punish here with that Ultra Ball in hand. Has access to go and grab the Arceus V-Star, could grab the boss's orders and start removing important parts from Ondrej's board.
Yeah, taking out that Sobble and then potentially forcing another pass from Ondrej could be really scary. So just completely scuppering Ondrej's chances of getting anything set up. And without the Rowlet in deck, it's super scary because then they won't be able to prevent the Dunsparce or any of Stéphane's Sobbles when they eventually get some down. We've got 2 Arceus already, and they're pretty well set up between the 2 of them. So that's pretty scary.
So we're going to go grab boss for Stéphane. Vital part of this turn is just remove the engine for Ondrej, prevent him from having ways back into this game.
Yeah, Stéphane has 1 more V-Star in deck, so they might choose to go for something, like the research. It's just going to get them closer to getting that soon.
Yeah, they can also afford to quick ball here as well if they want to go grab the Sobble, so they're going to grab those. Going to boss. And since you know you have the ability to refill your hand, you can quick ball next turn to go grab a few Sobbles out if you wanted to. As we see the KO on the Sobble. Ondrej head in hand going, well, that was my only real out. I had outs to Drizzile, and if I wanna get there, it's gonna be pretty rough now.
Yeah, with not much of use in hand, a Zigzagoon, a Moltres. That is not looking fantastic, sadly. An Energy Search, Evolution Incense, nothing that's going to get another basic on board at all.
No. I'm going to go play the Energy Search. Can at least go grab a different energy from deck so that they can move the mana fee without having to burn the fighting energy. They're not playing a particularly high count of fighting energy. We do see there the Trainer's Court, so they can recycle it, but they're only playing the one copy, so potentially having to put it in discard without knowing if your Training Courts are available is a risk, because you really value the Zapdos fee in this matchup. So just grabbing a Dark Energy to be like, okay, well, at least technically we can save this for next game.
And Darkness Energy isn't the worst in this matchup to be discarding anyway. We know the Clara and Moltres late game play is fantastic. So that Darkness Energy can come back in quite a spectacular way. So it's possibly one of the smarter choices if you're going to be forced to use retreat cost energy.
And now we see the attach to the mana fee. Will we also see the retreat? We might even see a Zigzagoon and retreat into the Zigzagoon. That's at least a less valuable prize. But no, we're just going to see a pass again. We know Stéphane's just used one of his boss. We don't know how many he's, we don't necessarily know how many he's playing. He's playing 2, but we see the other one as prize. So there's no way of bossing out the Hooper. But can now preemptively go and grab the Dunsparce to go, right, you can't even really get going here. You can't go and grab the Zapdos as your comeback mechanic and take a big one-hit knockout because, I mean, we've got our little... I don't even know what Dunsparce is. Just chilling on the bench. It's just a Dunsparce.
Yeah, no, Dunsparce is a fantastic play here. Just and the mana features, like, no.
Yep, protecting it too.
There's Stéphane says, no, you're not hurting anything here. Mana fee is protecting Dunsparce. Dunsparce is protecting Arceus, and Arceus is in the front going, yep, I've got this.
I'm the creator of all Pokemon. I think I got this.
Yeah. You guys protecting me, that's perfect. Protect each other, even better. Teamwork makes the dream work, and they are smashing it. So, yeah, this is a really strong position. Stéphane's not giving Ondrej any wiggle room for a comeback.
Nope. As we'll see the next quick ball as well. Going to grab the next Sobble, so double Sobble on bench. This is more or less, if you could draw up your board state, this would be it. Ondrej, less so. As he promotes and basically offers the handshake going, yeah, it's a dead draw for game 2. And unfortunately, that happens. Always sucks when it's at any time, but particularly on round 1 of day 2 when players are really having to focus on converting for the top 8.
It's a really exhausting day. And to start off, unfortunately, with dead draws like that, can't feel great.
Yeah, so just having a quick look, according to standings, no other games have finished yet in this round, so we do have a little bit of time before we'll get on with round 11. But this round is now complete. Stéphane takes the win, moves to 7-1-2. Bubble is likely going to be around 30, 31 points, but that very much depends on what happens for the next few rounds, so stay tuned on that. We'll try and work out the maths later on for cut. But for the top 8 players, this is an excellent start for Stéphane. He wanted to take the win yesterday, right? He didn't. He wanted to play the last round out. He's trying to convert to go back-to-back regional champion.
It's great to see as well that somebody has such passion for the game. They just want to play as much as possible, get as much practice in with all of the different matchups that they could possibly see. So seeing that much passion for the game and joining us for the last round yesterday was spectacular. Yeah,
and not only that, but we're also seeing that these decks are flexible and everyone's working out the correct lines. Okay, in that situation, Ondrej didn't really get going games 1 or 2, which is unfortunate, but that is the risk of these toolbox decks. You have to kind of see the right parts at the right time, and if you get some parts prized or can't draw into them, well, then now your deck's just kind of a pile of different cards that really don't want to be there right now.
No, indeed, and it's one of those really difficult situations where do you tech all of the cards for all of the matchups, or do you focus on consistency?
Yep.
And that's where all these toolbox decks can, unfortunately, have that opportunity of bricking.
Yes.
Because you've got so many moving parts
Yeah.
and so many little bits and bobs that actually it compromises the consistency of the deck sometimes.
Yep.
It doesn't always happen. They got to day 2, that's spectacular. Clearly, something was going right yesterday, but this morning, the deck did not want to wake up.
I mean, maybe we should ask if they want a cup of coffee for their deck. We can offer them a cup of coffee, try and wake it up, get it rolling.
Get it warmed up for the day.
Yeah, because just some slow starts. And it's a deck that has slow starts by design.
Yeah, of course.
But it was even slower than they were expecting.
Yeah, just a little bit too slow. On that first game, it was looking for a while like they could make a good comeback. It was really looking positive. And then, unfortunately, all of a sudden, it fell apart.
Yeah. So I think we'll be having some form of player interview with Stéphane to continue, basically just catching up with him over the course of the weekend. This is the third time we've had him on.
Spoken to him quite a lot, thankfully.
Like anyone who's ever spoken to Stéphane for TCG stuff will know he's more than happy to chat TCG. So it looks like there might be some form of interview being set up. See what his plans are for day 2. Hope probably keep winning.
You might hope so. They're clearly onto a good start today. They did play spectacularly and really did shut down what their opponent was trying to do. So I think they've definitely got their A game today.
Yeah, so just having a quick look at the standings from before round 10, so from round 9, we do see that Stéphane was toward the top with the RCS Inteleon. He was one of the top placed RCS Inteleons. The other RCS above him were kind of with B-drills, with VMAXs, and actually number 1 seed going into today was the list that we featured yesterday, which didn't do a lot on stream, but apparently did a lot in all the other games because they went 8-1, was Philip Schultz's RCS V-Star Cincino Jolteon.
It was such a shame that we didn't get to see that deck in its true power. So maybe at some point today that would be cool, because we might be able to see it actually kick off this time.
Yeah, so I think we're going to see an awful lot of interesting decks. See if we're going to be able to keep the conversion rate for RCS up, because RCS is kind of carrying through this tournament. Also, when I was going through the lists earlier on, a surprisingly large amount of Urshifu. A lot of people have cut the mana fee, as we saw neither of the 2 players we just had on have. But cutting that mana fee kind of opens up the kind of Urshifu checkmate, as it was called, but the Urshifu toolboxy kind of stuff with the Inteleon.
Yeah, it's an interesting decision. I think to mana fee or not to mana fee is quite the question, where really it does seem quite split.
I'm sat next to Shakespeare.
Yeah, Pokemon Shakespeare. So it's one of those really strange questions where do you fear the bench damage or not? And some people have made that decision, especially the lack of Jolteon VMAX around now, as well as a secondary fear for high bench damage. Really, we haven't seen a lot of Jolteon around at all. We didn't see any on stream yesterday. Sadly, we're not going to see any today, I don't think.
No.
And then, so really, Urshifu's your only contester for those big bench damage moments. So some people will not fear the Urshifu and think, I don't need to mana feed
So
today.
let's go over and see if we can learn more about what Stéphane thinks, having to big charm his Dunsparce, as we go and speak to the person right now.
Thank you, casters. I'm here with our first feature round winner here for day 2, Stéphane, who has, I think, become a bit of a familiar face over the course of this stream.
How are you guys? Everyone okay?
Yeah, no, right. So yeah, I mean, this is now the 3rd time we've been on the stream here at the Bremen Regionals, but so far it seems to be going pretty well, I think it's safe to say.
Yeah, I guess. On stream and off stream, I guess. Yeah. So good start for day 2. Hopefully it keeps the momentum keeps like this or something.
Yeah, so for this feature round, you're playing against Ondrej, and of course he's playing a single prizer focus deck that it's the first time we've seen it on stream. Like, have you seen this deck before? Like, what do you think of it?
Yeah, I kind of play this kind of deck in Lille.
Oh, okay. I did not tune into the Lille stream. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, basically one Lille Regionals with basically the same idea. With although he played Whizzing and I don't have Whizzing, I considered Whizzing after Lille for Bremen because it was good in the mirror match. It's very good against generally Inteleon decks. And it could, in theory, help against Jolteon, like you put Whizzing active, Jolteon doesn't work, so then you can actually use your Drizzles into Leons and then you retreat Whizzing and you attack or whatever. But my early testing, it was not good enough against Arceus, especially like Arceus and Inteleon, and I was still very worried about that, so I didn't play it. But yeah, like at least the good news is that since I kind of play this deck a lot, I know how to play against it as well. So I think that helped me a little bit. I mean, game 2 he bricked, so there's not much to say. But as you can see before the research, I kept my quick ball because if I played the quick balls early on, it could give him easy targets like for roulette on the bench or even hoopa. And so I waited because I didn't have to play them, and I waited, and at some point I just went Dunsparce, Manaphy, and priority before the subballs, because I don't actually need suball before a certain point in the game, whereas Dunsparce and Manaphy can be very important to keep the momentum going.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. So given what you were just saying about how you were testing against Italian and you weren't 100% sure about the matchup, what made you decide to like play it in Lille and then sort of change your mind for today?
Yeah, well, basically, I ended up playing RCS in Leon because I was like, okay, if I play this correctly, I should beat the deck I played in Lille, which I expected to rise in popularity a little bit. I think, yeah. And also, it felt like a better matchup against Jolteon. I mean, not that Jolteon is great for me, but it's more playable and just a good deck all around.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's that solid consistency option that you know is always going to be sort of reliable. Now, there's going to be 4 more rounds of Swiss left today. Going into the rest, so you've probably had a bit of a chance to look at the rest of the field for day 2 and sort of see what you like to face. What would you like to go against and what would you not like to go against?
I don't know. Like, I don't really want to face Mew. I know I will have at some point because they're in the top tables, but if I can avoid them as long as I can, I would be happy. It's beatable, but it's not, like, it's definitely a matchup I was sort of okay taking a loss to. I wasn't like, okay, I auto-lost to Mew, but I was like, okay, I want to beat Arceus decks mostly, and Mew, if I'm like 45, 55, that's fine. Obviously, that's easier against in day 1 where players are not, maybe on average, not as good. Obviously, in day 2, the Mew players are going to be more dangerous, so I'm going to have to rely a little bit on luck or just... yeah, you know, like going first helps in the matchup, of course.
Yeah. It is one of those things where it seems like this tournament has been this like resurgence of Mew. We've kind of seen more at the top tables now, and I think we have done it the past few regionals, so we're kind of really making that resurgence here. In that case, I guess all that's left to say is best of luck for the rest of the rounds. So congratulations once again. We're going to throw to a quick break, but we will be back very soon with our next feature match, so don't go anywhere.